Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Mauri. In the mid-19th century, the two strongest players in the world were undoubtedly Paul Morphy from the United States and Adolf Anderssen from Germany. And in 1858, they met in Paris and played a series of games. In this one, Morphy has the white pieces and he kicks off with e4, and after e5, he plays the king's gambit. And Anderssen accepts, e takes f4, knight f3 prevents the queen from checking on h4, aside from developing a piece, obviously. And here, Anderssen has some options. He can play a developing move like knight f6 or d6, but he chooses to defend his pawn on f4. But as it turns out, after the clever h4, it's not so easy to defend the pawn on g5. h6 doesn't work because white now just takes and you can't recapture because of rook takes rook. And even the move f6 runs into the brilliant knight takes g5, and after it takes queen h5, white is completely winning. For example, king e7 takes, king e8, check, check, and check, and black is completely busted. So h4, this is why Anderssen played the move g4, knight e5, knight f6, knight takes g4, but now knight takes e4, d3, knight g3, and so you can see that the rook in the corner is attacked. So what should white do? Should he move the rook? Should he not move the rook? In fact, if he does move the rook, then black, according to computer engines, is winning after queen e7. But I won't go too deep into that because I want to show you what happened in the game. In this position, Morphy played bishop takes f4, simply allowing the rook to be captured. So this is a great move, bishop takes f4. And Anderssen did in fact take the rook with knight takes h1, and then follows queen e2 check. And here you can't play bishop e7 because then there's a forced mate in 2. After knight f6, king f8, bishop h6, checkmate. So therefore you have to play queen e7, which is of course what Anderssen did. Knight f6, this knight is obviously not able to be taken because the black queen is pinned by the white queen, so king d8 is the only move. And now another pretty move, bishop takes c7 check. Only move is to accept this, but the reason why Morphy did this is of course this fork, knight d5, a royal fork as we say. And after king d8, knight takes e7, bishop takes e7. Here black is threatening to take on h4 with check, so a little multi-purpose move here, queen g4, both protects the pawn and covers the g3 square so that the knight can't escape there. Here Anderssen played the move d6, opening up for the bishop on c8, logical move. So queen f4, still keeping an eye out on the h4 and g3 squares. Rook g8 is a logical move, trying to get the knight to g3. Queen takes f7, attacking the rook, but allowing bishop takes h4 check. And after king d2, the engines actually evaluate this position as equal. Although, as you can see, it's fairly complicated and at least very unbalanced. The rook now on g8 is hanging, so you don't have time for knight g3 here. So rook e8. And here, knight a3. Knight comes out aiming for b5 or c4 in some cases, but also getting ready to get the rook into the game. And here Anderssen does a mistake. The best move would have been bishop g5 check, king c3, and knight c6 developing with an unclear game. So, but after knight a6, white had the move queen f4, which he did miss actually. Attacking the bishop and attacking the pawn on d6. So after a move like bishop e7, you can play rook e1, and there is a line here, rook f8, queen e3, threatening mate in 1 with queen takes e7, so rook e8 for example, knight c4, bishop d7, bishop e2, rook g8, still trying to get that knight out, queen d4, the knight does get out, but after bishop f3, white is actually winning, but we won't go any further into this line. So let's rewind a little bit here to position after knight a6. The best move would have been queen f4, but Morphy played the move queen h5, which seems logical enough because it's skewering both of the pieces on the h file. The best move here would have actually been bishop e7, queen takes h1, bishop g5, and then bishop e6. And now all the black pieces are coming alive. The rook on a8 is coming to c8. The bishop can come to f6 with a check. The bishop on e6 is covering some squares around the white king. Even the knight on a6 is doing that. So this would have been a sharp game after this line, after these moves. But instead, Anderssen played the move bishop to f6. And now here, the best move, giving white a winning position, would have actually been rook e1, which neutralizes the most dangerous and active black piece, which is the rook on e8. So after, for example, rook takes, king takes, knight g3, queen f7, you can't actually hang on to the pieces that white is threatening because, well, the bishop is hanging, and if you play bishop e7, then there is queen g8, and this is a check, and also attacking the knight, which will fall on the next move, so there's no way to hang on to both of these pieces. And if you play bishop h4 to try to defend the knight, then there is queen g8, king has to go up, and queen takes h7 is both a check and also attacking the bishop. And if you play bishop e7 to block the check and save the bishop, then there is queen h3 check, and then next move the knight falls. So after, if we go back just a little bit, after bishop f6, Morphy would have been actually winning after rook e1 in the line that we just saw, but instead he played the more natural move queen takes h1, but here black could have played bishop g5 check, and after king c3 we have the line that we discussed earlier where black is doing fine. So this is why taking the knight was not as good as rook e1. But in this position, Anderssen played the more natural looking bishop takes b2, which turns out to be a mistake. Morphy now gives a check, so the black king is quite open in this position and in this whole game, and he never really gets the chance to develop all his pieces in time. This game is a good example of how powerful queens can be. After king d7, he plays the move rook b1, but another strong move actually here would have been d4, because after bishop takes a1, bishop b5 is quite strong. This would have been actually even stronger, but rook b1 is also good. After bishop takes a3, Morphy now gives another check, and here Anderssen resigned. He could have fought on a little bit, but the position is lost, and a sample line that I want to give here is king d8, obviously taking the bishop, threatening the pawn on d6, and here, for example, after knight c5, there is again rook e1 like we saw earlier, just eliminating the strongest black piece, the rook. And after rook takes, king takes b6, d4, knight goes to b7 to defend the d6 pawn, and here queen f3, rook b8, bishop b5, for example, and yeah, the queen and the bishop are just too strong for the black pieces. The h7 pawn will fall, and then the g pawn will become a problem. So this is why Anderssen resigned after the move. Queen a4 check, didn't want to play longer. All right, I thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye bye.